Language learning for teens and adults. The first video in this series looked at teaching English to children. This video will consider teens and adults. Let's look first at some similarities for teens and adults. The biggest one is that they both are capable of understanding abstract concepts. They can learn rules and understand how to apply them in a variety of situations. Their attention spans are longer than children's, although teens can easily lose focus. Their memories are much better than children also. Where repetition is necessary and welcome for children, it may be considered childish for teens and adults. Both also need modified input so that it'll be comprehensible to them, but they need it at an adult type level, they shouldn't feel childish. The language has been simplified in a childish way, if that makes sense. Both teens and adults have somewhat fragile egos and self-esteem. I realize that some would argue with me that adults have well-developed self-esteem. But my response is that their self-esteem in their first language does not necessarily translate into a second language. In fact, from my personal experience, I know that walking around Japan, I often felt like a preschool child because of my lack of language knowledge. The impact to my ego was rather significant. I was overly sensitive to corrections, unwilling to risk public mistakes, and frustrated at my lack of independence. So, while teenagers usually have more volatile egos and self-images, adults will struggle with this in the language learning classroom as well. Teens will often lack intrinsic motivation to learn a language. For them, if they learn another language, it may result in being teased by others in their culture who didn't know the language. Work is too distant of a goal for them to be motivated by that, and they seldom are in an ESL or EFL class by choice. Even if they are there to pass a college entrance exam, they still may consider what is being taught as useless information because entrance exams tend to focus only on grammar, reading, and writing. Convincing young adults to actively participate in communicative activities will prove challenging usually. It will be necessary to tap into their interests, skills, and abilities. Tasks, projects, problems, and cooperative activities can be motivating and fun if the learning purposes are clear. Teens want to have fun, but they don't want to be treated like children. They want limited responsibility. They want creative challenges. They have no desire to focus on grammar for an entire lesson, even if that's what they need for the entrance exam. Adults are more mixed. Some of them will try to insist on grammar and more grammar, usually because it's the only method they're familiar with. They're willing to participate in fun activities if they understand the language learning objective behind it. They almost always have either high intrinsic or extrinsic motivation. They have goals and they know time is running out. So fun is okay as long as it improves their English in meaningful ways. They are more reluctant than teens and children to try new tasks, so it's preferable to make small changes at a time. Let one successful experience build upon another one. I suggest having adults keep portfolios of their work because it's extremely difficult for them to recognize growth in their L2 ability. But if you ask them to analyze their portfolio at the end of the semester, they will amaze themselves at the progress they've made. It will be more meaningful for them to discover their improvement than for you to tell them their improvement. So, as you can see, there are plenty of similarities between teaching teens and adults. Cognitive reasoning, longer attention spans, better memories, and somewhat fragile language learning egos. Some differences are that teens usually are uninterested in grammar unless they need it to pass some kind of exam, whereas adults tend to think it's the only way to learn a language. Adults need to recognize a learning objective for every activity in the classroom, while teens are willing to have fun and be entertained, as long as they feel it provides useful language practice. Teenagers have very little motivation, while adults usually have strong language learning motivation. Not always, but usually. Teens are more open to new teaching techniques than adults in general. Finally, teens can make quick language improvement, while adults experience improvement more slowly.